Hi, I'm James Kotecki. You are here with me in the C-Space studio at CES 2020, and here with us is Kirk McDonald, Chief Business Officer at Xandr. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, great to be here, James. Thanks for having me.
So let's start by defining Xandr's brand.
The brand. Xandr is the advertising company inside of AT&T. So AT&T, as the business itself expanded into content by acquiring Warner Media, it also launched and started this division, which was first AT&T Advertising and Analytics, which has been rebranded as of the fall of 2018 as Xandr.
Mm-hmm. And that's as in Alexander Graham Bell, right?
As in Alexander Graham Bell. So we borrowed from the legacy, the history of AT&T, 143-year-old company, really always a company about empowering consumers to do more of the things that they want to do, realize the importance of communication in facilitating that. It's the real history of innovation that is the company. And when we looked back, we realized that borrowing from some of that legacy was a powerful way both to reflect on the strength of the company in its historic past, but really to be forward focused on consumer needs going forward. So we abbreviated the name, created a little bit of brand treatment, good old brand and marketing treatment to it, and that's what we launched.
We're all about that here at the C-Space
That's
studio,
what we are
so we
about.
appreciate that. What is the message that you have here for people at CES? Why are you here?
You know, we come to CES because the Consumer Electronics Show really, without maybe realizing in its early stages, but today it's so apparent that as consumers continue to be empowered with technology, it really is facilitating new opportunities, both from them from an experience standpoint, but new business opportunities that surround that. So increased ability or power in the hands of the consumer, more IT for them, personal IT, now enhanced with more connectivity. As we look on to the horizon of 5G, we realize that this is the epicenter of where those decisions around how to talk to those consumers will happen. Xandr comes because advertising plays a role in democratizing how those consumers get to robust, rich content, and we get to participate in that conversation.
Let's talk about 5G, especially because you are also AT&T, which is also doing this from multiple angles. So what does 5G mean for you at Xandr, and what will it mean for 2020? You
know, 5G is about what it means for the consumer first, right? So what it simply means is just increased connectivity, lower latency speeds. I mean, the vision of smart factories and autonomous driving vehicles is really the tip of the iceberg of what changes for the consumer. As we lead the 5G revolution or change as that spectrum is turned up across AT&T, we realize from a content perspective inside of Warner Media that we'll not only be able to deliver robust, rich content, but those content will now become an experience for the consumer. The advertising business, the center of excellence of advertising inside of AT&T, that is Xandr, really thinks of that in terms of, again, empowering ads now that are going to be more relevant to the moment. We've got to reduce the interruptive nature of advertising, make advertising much more a complementary asset to the consumer experience around robust content. So we think about it all those ways, and that's where it connects.
Can you share some examples of brands that get it and are able to kind of integrate that in a more robust, non-interruptive way?
Yeah, you know, I think all the brands are getting it at their own rate. Mm-hmm. So to call out winners means that you end up unintentionally calling some as losers. I would suggest this: the conversations that have been, hey, let me really understand my consumers better, let me make sure I have a data profile of them and I understand the segments that will work better, have always been about, let me make sure my message is getting to relevant people and that my message itself is relevant. We're seeing increasingly partners that are working with us now across all the aspects of AT&T, where they're thinking, how do I improve my infrastructure of connectivity so I can create experiences around my brand? How do I actually participate in the content experiences that you have across your content assets? Branded content being a part of that as well, too, bespoke to my brand needs. And then from an advertising standpoint, let me take advertising to this targeted place. Addressable, small A addressable advertising is really the future of the space. So we're seeing companies get there and get it at their own rate, and we're there to partner with them.
Let's talk about addressability and the data that you have to provide to advertisers about how to address their ads. Is there any kind of data that you collect that might surprise people?
You know, I don't know that there's anything that we do that should surprise anyone. We actually have this, I think, fortunate history. For 140 some odd years, we've been in an intimate, close relationship with our consumers, because providing connectivity devices, whether in the home with wired telephone lines all the way through your mobile devices, AT&T has had to actually make sure the relationship it has with consumers is of the highest integrity, that we've protected their privacy at every step of the way. So now with new rules and regulations around compliance, we're making sure that we're meeting all of those standards. We don't want to surprise the consumer, so they're aware of what's happening, they've consented to what's happening, and we're making sure that even as we partner, that the partners that we work with are also adhering to those standards as well. It's just been a part of who we are, and we realizing that breaching that consumer trust, it just is not acceptable, and we're going to continue working towards that.
Talking to Kirk McDonald from Xandr, what is the relationship that you have with Warner Media, which, as you mentioned, is also owned by AT&T?
Yeah.
Does the fact that you have this kind of creative entity putting out all this great creative content reflect back and help you in some way on the Xandr, the advertising side?
Yeah, we love the relationship that we've created now. It's allowed us to expand the conversations with all of the partners. So again, if you think of everything that is CES, consumers are the ones in control. They're more empowered than they've ever been. They have more content, more interesting, robust content than they've ever had to experience. So premium content matters. The best content library in the world advantages us to have certain conversations. But now if you can expand those conversations for marketers with stronger addressability, high fidelity data sets that allow us to append and extend reach, especially across types of viewers that don't view as often as we used to, light TV viewers, we are able to work with marketers to make sure that advertising works better, content works better, all because connectivity is better.
What does advertising feel like for me as a consumer in the ideal world of the future? Does it really even feel like advertising?
No, that's really where we're going to have to go. With consumers having more choice than ever before, advertising's got to feel natural, complementary to my interest. Not always to the experience I'm having. Sometimes the experience should change, but definitely complementary to my interests. Somewhere along the line, consumers will want to have the experience relevant to them all the time. Because irrelevance in terms of just uninteresting or not related to something that I plan to do or could possibly entertain doing in the future is going to be unacceptable, and I'll block it or ignore it. But if it's actually engaging with my interest patterns, things that I care about, we believe that advertising is going to work better.
You used to be the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of Xandr, if I'm correct about that,
right.
and you have your title now is Chief Business Officer.
Yeah,
One thing that
correct.
we're curious about here in the C-Space studio is the title of CMO, how that's changing and evolving, what does it mean? So in your case, why the title change, and is there a broader significance to that?
You know, the title change, I think, is reflective of the fact that my scope expanded beyond simply the narrative and storytelling of a new brand, a new B2B brand, to also be inclusive of how are we actually positioning all of our products, how are we going to market around our sales organization and our communications efforts overall. The CBO title reflects what I think is the evolution of the Chief Marketing Officer to be a Chief Growth Officer inside of organizations. With so much information, owning narratives begins to be the way to cut through the noise and the clutter. So I think we are seeing a renaissance in storytelling. Companies that are able to do that well are beginning to cut through the noise of the industry. We think that across all of AT&T, we're going to just keep trying to improve the way we tell our stories. Unique to Xandr and what we've done, I feel very fortunate to have now the responsibility of leading the revenue organization and the storytelling aspects of the company, both at the corporate and at the product level.
But do you think that the title of Chief Marketing Officer is outdated generally, or is this a specific thing in your case that doesn't necessarily reflect broader trends?
I don't know that the title is outdated. I think the title, the scope of responsibility is evolving. Most Chief Marketing Officers have been growth officers.
Yeah.
They have been involved in that. I do think that there's some legacy belief that what the marketing leaders do are plan events and spend the money.
Yeah.
But in almost every organization where accountability has become the new normal, you're seeing the Chief Marketing Officer really be closely tied to customer expectations, customer business growth objectives, and then making sure that they're matching up the company's assets against that.
Speaking of marketing, I believe that your company tagline is making advertising matter.
Yeah.
Why does advertising matter to you?
You know, advertising gets a bad rap. Advertising needs an ad campaign, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And here's why. What advertising does is it actually funds, it fuels, it is the enabler of the robust, rich content we see. So democratized access to content is only enabled through advertising. They are the power that allows us to have these experiences. And an effort that helps consumers really realize the relationship that advertising has to their access to content is needed. We've done some research as part of a report we put out now annually called the Relevance Report. What we found is that the consumer is not anti-advertising, actually. They're pro-content, which simply means that advertising has to get better, has to tell better stories, and has to be more bespoke to situations and to individuals. That's what Make Advertising Matter means for Xandr. We're going to improve the efficacy and efficiency of advertising as best we can with the consumer at the center of that.
Well, we thank you for sharing part of that story with us, Kirk McDonald, Chief Business Officer.
Hey, thanks, James. Thank you for your time today.
Xandr, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here in the C-Space studio. I'm James Kotecki, your host. We're here at CES 2020, and more great conversations with media and marketing leaders are just ahead.